to thank our sponsors for today, Northern Bank, Crew Boston, and our annual sponsor, U.S. Pavement. Introduce our moderator for our panel, Laura Gregoriades. I cannot do that. I'm going to get that. I'm going to practice and then I'm going to call you and use it on you.
Okay.
Laura is she's a CPA and partner with DeChico, Gullman and Company. And Laura is a partner and member of the leadership team at DGC's Real Estate Group. Laura provides financial reporting, tax, business advisory, and consulting services to clients in the real estate and hospitality industries. She works with a diverse group of clients and property types, including multi-use, hotels, commercial, multifamily, and retail. Laura leads all aspects of an engagement, including the accounting, tax, and advisory services for owners and trusts. Laura takes a holistic approach to each engagement and advises clients on the most optimal ways to structure a deal based on her understanding of their business and personal situation. Laura holds various positions with industry organizations, including Crew Boston, Crew Network Foundation, NAOP, and the Greater Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau. She's currently serves as a president of Crew Boston. I give you Laura.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
Thank you for having us today. On behalf of Crew Boston, I'd like to welcome everybody and acknowledge that we enjoy working with the New England Real Estate Journal on this annual event and appreciate the opportunity. So I have an esteemed panel today that we will meet in a minute, but first Zoom etiquette. Please stay on mute for the time being, but if you have questions, I would very much be interested in hearing what the audience has to ask about our panelists today. So please use the chat function. I will monitor that and leave some time at the end for any questions that you have. With that, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Amy Corte from Arrow Street.
Hi, I'm Amy Corte from Arrow Street. I'm an architect and a principal here. I'm also the president of the company. For those of you guys who don't know Arrow Street, we do a wide variety of building types, mixed use, retail, life sciences, office, and also have graphic design and interiors.
Thank you, Amy. Elizabeth Kroll from Partner Engineering and Science.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Laura, and thank you to Rick for having me here today. I love being part of this esteemed panel with these incredibly talented women. As some of you may know, I'm with Partner Engineering and Science. We're a national engineering consulting firm. And what's unique about me is that I'm a geologist with an MBA. And so I believe that brings a unique perspective to assess risk associated with commercial real estate transactions. And it's work that I'm really passionate about. And I'm so delighted to have a chance to talk to you all today. So thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Michelle Fitzpatrick, Northern 1031 Exchange.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for making me part of this panel. It's wonderful to be with such a dynamic group of women, and I'm excited about the conversations that we're going to have today. Like Laura said, I'm with Northern 1031 Exchange. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of Northern Bank. So I just actually celebrated my 6 years with Northern Bank. I started there 6 years ago, and we started the exchange company about 5 years ago. So I have a real estate background. I have a lot of investment properties, and it was kind of a natural fit. We hired an exchange specialist who's been in the industry for 25 years, so he handles a lot of the logistics. But the 5 years we have been booming for our exchange company. We leveraged our commercial clientele and offered a service. So it's great to go into work every day. It's a rewarding job. I constantly am finding myself helping people preserve their profits and build their wealth. And it's a great place to be. So I'm always kind of delivering good news, which is a nice job to have. So thank you. I look forward to talking with y'all.
Thank you, Michelle. And last but not least, Carrie Hawkins with JLL.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me today. It's really exciting to be on a panel of women who I respect and admire so much. And to have Laura as our moderator. My name is Carrie Hawkins. I am with the capital markets team at Jones Lang LaSalle, JLL, formerly with HFF, who was acquired by JLL last year. And previous to my capital markets life, I spent 20 years at CBRE on the landlord advisory side of the business, primarily on strategic advisory on the asset side. So what I do is either find ways to fill the capital stack on investment properties, whether it be disposition, raising equity, creating a joint venture, figuring out different ways to monetize an asset and provide solutions for our clientele. I'm excited to be here this morning. Thank you.
Let's start the conversation by diving into the current real estate market. Despite the tough year, it seems that people are busy and business is moving forward. What are each of you seeing within your respective niches in the industry? Are projects moving forward and are new deals getting done? Who would like to get started?
I'll take a shot at it.
Sure.
So from an exchange standpoint, we had a really, really big Q1, probably the biggest that we had since we started the company. So going into January, February, and March, we had seen record numbers of exchanges in record numbers in all asset sizes. So it wasn't just specific to, you know, multifamilies or commercial property. It was really across all assets. And we closed deals all the way through until the end of March. It really did slow down and we saw a dip in Q2. So April and May was, you know, there was a lot of sales that were either canceled or delayed. And then Q3, like clockwork, it picked right back up again. So we had a booming July and August. We've had a really successful September. And again, we're closing things anywhere from $250,000 multifamilies all the way up to $30 million apartment complexes. So and kind of everything in between is what we're seeing. So hopefully the trend will continue throughout the rest of the year is what we're hoping for.
Laura, I echo Michelle's observations. Very similarly, we had such a busy Q1. We took a pause in Q2, and the summer's been so incredibly busy with acquisitions as well as refinancing. We're finding, of course, in multifamily and industrial, those are the strongest sectors for our clients. But the refinancing, there's so much opportunity now. The rates are so favorable. And one program in particular that many of our clients are taking advantage of, you may be familiar with the preferred rate program, the Fannie Mae Green Rewards program, and they've actually added a solar component, which is a really terrific new dimension. So we're very fortunate that our clients are taking advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, I would echo what Elizabeth and Michelle also said. You know, Q1 was really strong. Q2 was, you know, pause on a few projects, but, you know, over the summer and even all during the beginning phases of the pandemic in March, you know, life sciences still booming for us, multifamily still going really strong, although there is some concern over, you know, the students not coming back right away and what that does to the pipeline. However, most of our multifamily projects are, you know, 3-4 years out from getting opening and hitting that certificate of occupancy. Similar to what Elizabeth said in terms of the sustainability, it's been really nice to see some of our sustainable kind of trends that we were trending towards of net zero carbon, passive house, those things still having interest and if, almost more interest given the current state of and kind of focus around health in buildings. And so you're looking at us doing evaluations for, you know, Fitwell, well buildings, looking at the indoor air quality, as well as a lot of master planning and repositioning. So looking at, you know, what happens to the retail, the malls, how can they be repositioned into more mixed-use developments, which is where we were headed anyways.
I would echo all of the above as well. On the capital market side, I mean, we're seeing just no shortage of demand in terms of the supply chain side of our industry as well as e-commerce. We are discovering that we're doing everything just a little bit differently now. You're seeing just a proliferation of companies just providing infrastructure to satiate the demand in terms of delivery services. We are also seeing just an abundance of activity on the life science side. We have about 11 million square feet of tenant use in Boston that has been slated for COVID-19, either vaccinations or treatments. which is just an unprecedented amount of demand on that side of the industry. And we are seeing both investors and tenants just trying to capitalize on just the amount of, frankly, money that's available to go into that side of the business. We're also seeing a lot of activity in suburban multifamily and development in particular, which is really exciting. And again, there's a lot of capital that's been on the sideline. We had over $300 billion of dry powder at the beginning of the year slated for real estate investment. And there was a big pause in Q2. And people seem to be busy and trying to fulfill their allocations for year end and trying to get money out the door. So that's really positive news for our business overall.
That's great to hear. It's great to hear that we are, coming back and that things are busy and the real estate market is thriving, given the current pandemic. Carrie, can you elaborate on JLL's long-term outlook and specifically how the current reaction to the pandemic will impact long-term trends in the local market?
Sure, absolutely. I can just tell you about what we're seeing and what a lot of our clients are seeing is that there seems to be some hesitation or some news that we're hearing about hesitation to get back into the office. We're back in the office. I think personally that it's really important for growth of our employees and our pipeline to have that osmosis that comes from being in a collaborative environment that I think you just can't do over a Zoom call. And I think that while you will see some people have more flexibility in the workplace and be able to manage a work from home on occasion situation, I don't think we're going to see a lot of companies mandate that going forward. I think we've seen a lot of movement from some big tech companies who have said in the news that they're going to allow people to work remotely, but then they're also taking down really large slugs of space. For example, Facebook took down 750,000 square feet in Manhattan a few weeks ago when they just announced that they're buying REI's campus in Washington. So I think that we're going to see more flexibility come out of this, but I don't think we're going to see a big trend towards remote working. I think people are social creatures overall. They want to be back in the office and they want to collaborate and feed off of each other. And I think there are a lot of companies that are high touch, or a lot of industries, I should say, that are high touch and that need to be with other people to be productive. And I think that that's what we're going to see going forward. I think that this is a blip in time and in a near-term challenge, but I think long-term, people are going to be back into the office and back to a bigger amount of productivity.
Thank you.
I love your outlook on that, and I appreciate that because I think we read so many articles about the office spaces being vacant and what's going to happen, and it's nice to hear other people's perspective because, like you, we've been in the office really this whole time, and we are high touch, and we went through the whole PPP loan, so there was our whole staff was hands-on right in the beginning. So I appreciate your outlook on it because I think you're right.
And I think that are there jobs that you can do remotely and be productive? Sure. But in terms of just career growth and trajectory, I think it's really challenging, particularly for the younger workforce, to be seen and be noticed when they're not in the office and don't have that critical face time with senior level directors.
100% true. I couldn't agree more.
And how about from the employer perspective and the landlord perspective? All these companies are struggling right now with how to bring people back and how to bring them back safely. So what are you seeing in terms of that? And Elizabeth, maybe you can touch upon this as well.
Sure, be happy to. Amy referred a little bit to this earlier, this idea that people want to feel that they're returning to their workspace, that it's been properly cleaned and sanitized. We went into this thinking we were flattening the curve for 2 weeks, right? And so we had these mass commercial temporary vacancies, and it wasn't planned. That's really unusual, right? Usually when we are vacating our spaces because of tenant improvements, renovations, something like that, there's a schedule, there's a timeline, and there's time to properly decommission systems like the HVAC system to ensure the air quality remains high, to ensure that there's no mold or microbial growth. and a water system decommissioning as well, because there's a concern about Legionella or Legionnaire's disease. So all of that needs to be considered, but everybody wants to get back to the office. So how do we do that, right? A couple of key ways would be, if you don't have one already, to establish a facility management plan. This is a comprehensive document that looks at all those building systems and ensures that the on-site team, the building engineer, facilities maintenance, that staff has a program to follow to ensure, again, that those various pieces of equipment are operating efficiently and optimally. And in fact, we may need to do some upgrades, right? We hear some discussion about, you know, HVAC retrofitting or replacement of systems and improving the air quality and the air exchange rate. So I think all of those things go a long, long way. And also communicating with tenants, employees, guests, workers, customers, making sure that they feel that there's been a disinfection plan, even a disinfection O&M plan might be helpful, or an operations and maintenance document, something that helps communicate to all those stakeholders that the facility has been sanitized and it's an ideal time to return to the workspace.
And Amy, how about you from the design perspective?
Yeah, if I could add to that, what we're looking at currently with our own office, I mean, we have 4 years left in our lease, so we can't, you know, it doesn't make sense to just pick up and leave right now. And so how do we make our workplace really special so that our employees want to come back in? And so this fall we'll be installing different Zoom kind of virtual meeting backgrounds and spaces in our office that people, you know, maybe you don't have that type of space at home. You can, you know, try out different backgrounds in different kind of smaller rooms. And then really questioning, what does the desk look like for us as architects and designers? You know, it's not necessarily a one size, you know, fits all. We're going to be doing more touchdown spaces where people could come in, work at the office for 3 days, and then basically work from home 2 days a week. And so for us, it's figuring out, what is that extended hybrid model in the short term, and how do we really support our employees, you know, basically between now and the spring in order to feel comfortable, to anticipate their concerns. I mean, we've done a lot, as Elizabeth said, around communication and putting out PDFs down to the, you know, these restaurants are open, keeping that kind of information updated on our intranet so that people know what to expect when they're returning to the city.
Thank you. Michelle, you talked about the 1031 exchange market and being so vibrant still. Can you add a bit more as to why people are exchanging right now?
Sure, thank you. So people exchange for a variety of reasons. I think it's changed a little bit since COVID, but I actually just wrote an article for the New England Real Estate Journal that's going to be posted for the Women in Business Spotlight edition. So, and it talks about this very thing. I think what we have always seen there is estate planning is a big component, and I'm sure that, Laura, you see that being a CPA. Estate planning is a big one, and it takes up a large percentage of our clients. So investment properties take up a large component of their assets, and many clients are faced with situations where their heirs just don't want the property or not able to manage it, and their inheritance becomes a burden. So they structure it in a way that they can leave an estate the way that their heirs want it. Diversification is another really good reason. In conjunction with estate planning, investors want to diversify their assets. They may have one large multifamily property and they choose to have multiple smaller ones to leave to their heirs. Consolidation's a really good one. And increasing depreciation, that's another great one that people see, that they've owned their property for 27 years or a commercial property for 39 years. They've had the benefit of depreciation for all those years. They're creeping up on having that tax benefit taken away or expire. So extending the life cycle of their depreciation may be a good reason. Now more in COVID, cash flow is an issue. As we stated earlier, there are some properties that are in Boston, that are in Somerville, that are in Cambridge, in and around the universities, that student housing, they're just not getting the rent that they got before, and cash flow becomes an issue, so people are selling them. And there's a market out there for people that can hold on to those properties. Management relief, people who can't, don't want the phone calls anymore and don't want the burden of having those aging properties. So those are just a few reasons why, and I think, like I said, we've shifted a little bit. People were more on the estate planning and the leveraging issues, and now are more on the management relief and the cash flow reasons during COVID.
Thank you, Michelle. It would be remiss of me if I did not ask this group of talented professionals to share some insight into how you got to where you are. What were some of the challenges and lessons learned along the way? I'm just going to call on you. Carrie, why don't we start with you?
I can see that coming. Happy to opine on that. So I would say, you know, this is a challenging business. It's a hard business, and only the resilient seem to survive. I would say, particularly on the brokerage side of the business, it is incredibly competitive. And I would say the skills that have kind of gotten me through the last 20 years are, one, my love of learning, and two, my adaptability. I tend to have a very adaptable personality, and there have been times in my career where I've pivoted and been motivated and challenged by my ability to seek new skills. I started my career as an analyst on the investment sales side of the business. I've kind of come full circle now back to that side of the business, but then I went into leasing, and I worked as a leasing broker for a number of years. Was tapped on the shoulder and asked to go do corporate strategy solutions for a few years for a large account. Spent 2 years flying all over the country and doing the full kind of gamut of working for a particular tenant and solving their strategies on a large portfolio, and then took those skills back over to asset advisory. And then got tapped on the shoulder again and recruited over to the capital market side of the business. So I would say learning new skills has been a big driver for me. When I get bored, I seek new opportunity, and the real estate, there's so many different facets that there's always something else that you can learn in some other way that you can provide a better service to your clients. And that for me has been a great lesson. And just the fact that nothing is permanent, you can always pivot, and it's just picking up new skills along the way to make you better at what you do.
It's great advice. Thank you. Elizabeth, how about you?
Sure. Thanks, Laura. So I think I was very fortunate when I was new to the industry that I had a manager who was also a mentor to me, and he really imparted a number of important lessons. Among those was that our work should be the highest quality the first time around, that there really isn't a second chance. If you blow it, you know, Carrie just alluded to the competition in our market, right? There's someone else behind me and 3 other people behind them, all looking for that opportunity. So always deliver the highest quality right out of the gate. Communication, I mentioned that earlier, you know, early and often. I have a client who says to me, I want the good news fast, I want the bad news faster. No surprises. I need to know. As soon as you know, I need to know, right? I want to be your first call. And in turn, I'm his first call. So, you know, that reciprocity, that we're having a constant dialogue. And so, you know, becoming part of his deal team, I think that's really, of all the things to learn, to understand your role in the transaction, what value you bring, what contribution you make to that risk management protocol or the program that the client is implementing. That's so incredibly valuable. And then helping everybody, again, mitigate risk. So I think it involves more listening than talking. And so I love to talk with other people, but I really want to make sure that I'm getting a good understanding, you know, how I can contribute, how I can help solve the problem that needs to be solved. And then I think one other thing I would share as a female professional, I really struggled for a long time until I attended Crew Boston's Leadership Academy, and Jody Deacon taught us that we need to advocate for ourselves. I always thought my work would be noticed, that my contributions would be recognized, and in some ways they were, of course, and I had mentors and sponsors within my organization, so I was lucky, but it wasn't always that way, and it wasn't, I think, to the full extent that I should have been recognized. So Crew Boston is part of Crew Network, as Laura mentioned. Crew Network just launched the 4th in a row. Every 5 years, they do a benchmark study, and it tells us about how far we need to go, that women are underpaid relative to men, and it really echoes that message that we need to advocate for ourselves to ensure that we're compensated fairly. So those are some lessons that I've learned. And adding to what Carrie said about lifelong learning, I would say continue adding credentials throughout your career. Carrie, you had a great story about all these different twists and turns in your career, right? Along the way, it's so important to make sure that you have the appropriate credentials for the job that you're doing now and to the job that you're aspiring to join in the future. So keep learning, keep growing, and make sure, I think having those credentials helps ensure that you're compensated fairly.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And that's so important. I echo what you say with the advocating. You know, I think that very frequently we tend to think that our, you know, we'll be recognized for our accomplishments, but we need to make sure that we are self-promoting as well. Amy, how about you?
Yeah, I share a lot of similarities to Elizabeth and Carrie. I think for me, I love commercial real estate because it's fast. And it doesn't always seem like it's fast when you're in the middle of the project, but you're able to take a building from conceptual design and see it built basically within 3 to 4 years on a normal size project. For the larger ones, it's a decade, but you can still, see that 1 million square feet realized and take it from start to finish. For the learning part, I think, I get bored easily. And so I love just being able to, look at what is impacting our built environment now, what will impact it in the future, and figure out how we address that within our projects and within how we relate to the communities. And so climate change, being able to understand how to make buildings resilient. We have a project that just opened 2 weeks ago, Parcel K in the Seaport District, and it was one of the first that came out of the gate with Massport's new standards for resiliency. And for that project, we couldn't raise the street elevations, and it was designing the ground floor in order to withstand basically 4 feet of storm surge or sea level rise. And so figuring out how to do that without negatively impacting the ground plane. And so, we did a test last fall, which basically continuously poured 4 feet of water right up against the storefront and tested out and to make sure it could withstand that scenario. And so that's exciting to me. The kinetic facade that we did on Massport, again, integrating art with design and building, and, the things we're looking at today and learning from include anything from, looking at how data science can be integrated into our building models and using that to help inform and automate some of our design processes to, furthering the sustainability, what does a net zero building look like? What does a triple net zero building look like? And how do we really make that feasible for our clients within the budget, which again, tricky questions that aren't easy to answer and don't have simple solutions, but, by asking the right questions, understanding what the clients want and really listening both to them and to the communities, that's what makes this profession exciting, I think.
Michelle? You're on mute.
Sorry, I was having some internet issues, so hopefully I stay online. There have been a lot of lessons that I've learned along the way, and I think that echoing Elizabeth and Carrie and Amy, all the same, certainly advocate for yourself. You are your best advocate, there's no question. And advancing your credentials, that's all really, really important. And I think one of the things that's most important is to understand that, trial and error. You're going to fail along the way, and you're going to try things that may not work. There were different real estate paths that I took. I tried selling residential real estate and realized very quickly that that was not the path for me. I bought some investment properties and thought, being a landlord was going to be my ticket to early retirement. And again, that was not, I don't want those phone calls at 3 in the morning about a toilet. So that wasn't the path for me either. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that, passive real estate investments are a great way to go for me. That's my preference. Leveraging up to higher end properties, that's really where I'd prefer. And as far as my career goes with 1031 exchange, there are so many paths to take right now, and it's opened the doors and met so many people along the way that there's really a great opportunity there, in the entire commercial field, whether I go stay in qualified intermediary work or, get into DSTs or get into opportunity zones or whatever path that may take. but certainly trial and error, and certainly being open to other opportunities.
We have a question from our attendees that I'm going to throw in while we're on the topic. What higher credentials or education are most important for your respective industries?
I'll answer that one because I think for us it's shifted very much from being architecture only or design only to looking at more of an interdisciplinary education. We hired a data scientist 2 years ago because we wanted to start integrating that into our design practice. And we were talking yesterday as a partner group, how do we push out more training for our employees around things like iterative daylighting modeling, right? So things that typically you wouldn't graduate architecture schools with, but we see those as critical skills for our employees and for their career growth, kind of echoing what Carrie said earlier about, needing to be in the office to mentor and to understand and to learn quicker. What we're looking at in the short term is what are those training programs around communication, around interacting with communities, around advocacy. We're kind of running this whole gamut of additional learning that we have recognized that we need to give to our employees.
I would add to what Amy said about being interdisciplinary. I have an undergraduate degree in geology and a master's degree in geophysics, but it wasn't until I added the MBA that I was really able to embed additional skills that I needed to be a contributor to the deal team. And it really opened my eyes to so many other aspects of what's happening. Laura, you indicated how many areas there are within commercial real estate. And so getting more exposure to the accounting and finance side, property management, all those other pieces were really instrumental to making me a better environmental professional and a better advocate for my clients.
How about Carrie or Michelle?
Sure, I'll add to that. So I have an undergraduate degree from a liberal arts college in Spanish and government, so it's really, really relevant to what I do today.
Learned something new today about you, Carrie.
So I speak a couple of languages, but I had to teach myself Argus on the weekend. So when I first got into the industry, that's literally what I did. We were really busy. It was 1999. I was working for a group of senior people and would come in on Saturdays and teach myself cash flow analysis. So I would teach underwriting and do trial and error and try to recreate cash flows. It's just a way to learn. And then I ended up going to Boston University and doing their real estate program and getting a certificate in real estate finance. I would say for my particular side of the business, while we do have really exceptional people with advanced degrees, most of what we do is connecting dots and connecting people. And it's just learning how to be really resourceful and learning who you need to add to your team to add value to provide the best service to your client. So we spend a lot of time taking advantage of other people's advanced skill sets and knowing when we need to bring in Elizabeth in or Amy in to round out our team. So in terms of higher education, there's certainly credentials that are helpful, but generally it's just knowing who the right person to call is.
Michelle, do you want to weigh in on this question?
Well, you just caught me in the middle of studying for my CES exam, which I'm taking on Thursday next week. So I'm in the middle of getting my certified exchange specialist exam. So that's always fun, getting those certifications to have those initials at the end of your title. So it is important, and it's not the most important thing in my industry, but it certainly helps. It provides some sort of validation for your clients and for yourself. So yes, I think it's important to continue that.
Well, good luck with the studying.
I need it, thank you. It's about, 1,000 pages.
Oh, wow. So I think it's fair to say that mentorship and sponsorship are such an important part of ensuring that women can be successful in this industry. And probably equally as important to career success is networking and business development. However, in this virtual workplace, these are becoming more challenging. How have you continued to support others in their careers and also maintain business relationships during this pandemic?
I can
Michelle,
start.
you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. Zoom meetings all the way. Yeah, lots of Zoom calls. I've been fortunate where I got to go back into the office in June. So I have been working out of the office for the last 3 months. But prior to that, it was all Zoom meetings and a lot of that kind of contact and trying to make the best of it and navigate the etiquette of Zoom meetings because it was something that I just wasn't familiar enough with. I do belong to a national trade association called the Federation of Exchange Accommodators, and it's a very, very small trade association. And we have a group of 6 women that range anywhere from 24 or 25 years old up to 60 years old. So some, the 60-year-old been in the industry for 40 years, and I've been in the industry for 20 years, and it's been really nice to kind of provide that support get the knowledge and support from the people that have been in the business for a really long time and help the 24 and 25-year-olds that have questions and still need that help. So, most of the times our Zoom meetings, our monthly Zoom meetings will start off, they're usually at 8 o'clock at night. They usually have a glass of wine, and we usually start off and try to talk some business, and it ends up just being kind of a lot of laughs, a lot of joking around, but it's nice to know that you have that support system and that you can provide that mentorship to some women that need it. So.
I can add
Elizabeth?
this. Sure. So I would just say, as you said, finding the right trade association, finding your people, I think is vitally important, and we can still support each other remotely. And one silver lining for me is that I've been able to interact with so many more members of Crew Boston and Crew Network while we're remote. I've been able to Zoom to different educational programs related to diversity, equity, inclusion, which has helped further my understanding. And also some fun and engaging events, a book club and a yoga class with members on the West Coast. So, with 72 chapters, there's just a plethora of events and activities and opportunities to connect. So I've been really leaning in and taking advantage of those, and that's been incredibly rewarding. The other thing that I'm doing that I feel is so valuable is mentoring, both through Crew Boston's mentoring program, which technically wrapped up in the spring, but we kept going all summer long and through the fall, and it's been incredibly valuable, both to work with my mentee and to learn from her. I'm getting so much out of it, and the dialogue and the discussion we've been having has been really encouraging and supportive during this unusual time. And you mentioned, Michelle, having people that are at the younger end of emerging professionals at the early stages. I wish that I had found Crew Network then, in those early years of my career. So, finding the right organization and finding mentors in your organization or in your industry that help you figure out what your path forward is, I think is incredibly valuable. And at least for me, so many of the women that I work with through Crew Boston have become a personal board of directors to me, giving me guidance, career advice, information that I need, helping me to continue to keep my skills sharp, and also providing a support network during this unusual time. So definitely figuring out where that is. And as an organization, I think Crew Boston's done some amazing things. Laura, you can talk more about it, but our Coffee with Crew, with our legacy members, where we've given our membership an opportunity to interact with some of the senior women professionals in our industry who can share their expertise and help us understand their career path and the lessons they've learned along the way, has been incredibly valuable. And one little thing we've been doing, which has been really fun, is to help our members to update their CrewBiz profile, which is a way for them to be able to update their contact information, their skill set, and make them part of this amazing, vast network of more than 12,000 members globally who may be looking for their resources, their expertise, their specialty right here in Boston, no matter where they are. So that's been a really, really rewarding thing to do during the shelter-in-place order.
Amy, how about you? How about your involvement with mentorship and sponsorship and also on the business development front?
Yeah, I would echo what Elizabeth and Michelle said. I think being involved and really intimately involved on a committee or an organization during this time is critical. I mean, it gives you the face time, it gives you that ability to connect that you don't typically get outside your office. And so, whether it's Crew Boston or ULI or NAOP, I mean, all those organizations have committees where you can get involved and, either do a project or find your interest or affinity group and support network. I mean, for me as a you know, as a company and with 85 employees, it's been a lot of individual coffees, reach out, smaller coffee chats internally that we've been doing with our employees, both to connect people across the office and across teams, and to figure out how different people need mentoring or support, especially during this time, and then to not lose the momentum that we had, you know, back in March with their career growth. It's been really important. I mean, I'm really excited for the fall in terms of back to the office. I've been back 2 days a week. I'm hoping to get it up to 3 days a week because I think, you know, I didn't think about it before, but the amount of people that you run into on the street, like that has just started again, maybe 2 weeks ago, seeing clients sitting out in Post Office Square, having a meeting, being able to have those impromptu, like, you know, hey, how's it going, that you don't get on Zoom calls. That is what I'm really looking forward to going into the fall and winter. And then I'd say finally, back to the Zoom calls, since that's our main point of contact. It's allowed me to connect with people who I haven't connected with since grad school. So we got together, you know, our class from the GSD, we had a Zoom call one evening, and just, you know, seeing everyone's faces pop up on the screen that you haven't seen in, you know, 10 plus years, it was really nice. And, you know, would that have happened if we weren't in the current state of affairs? So there's other ways you can take advantage of it and use it to leverage other networks and opportunities.
Thank you. There's definitely some silver linings to this Zoom environment we find ourselves in. Carrie, how about you?
Sure. So we have one, just to echo what Elizabeth was saying about part of our crew mentoring program, which is just a really robust program and really pairs senior level women with emerging professionals, as well as peer-to-peer mentoring, which I think is incredibly helpful as well for people a little bit further up in their career trajectory. But we also have internal mentoring programs at JLL with both inter-office as well as I have a mentee that's in our Dallas office that I spend time with, just trying to, oftentimes you can talk to somebody in a different office about more challenging circumstances or questions that you may not be able to ask somebody that you work directly with. Obviously, we know mentoring and sponsorship are two very different things, and I would say one of my big reasons that I'm so involved in crew is that when I was a young professional, it was really hard to see a path to leadership on my side of the business. There were some women who were senior level, but they weren't at my firm, and it was challenging to try to find those people that could help sponsor you and help mentor you through that. So it's really important to me to give back to emerging professionals, both within and outside of my organization. One of the things that I've been doing is I'm a little tired of the Zoom. So we've been doing some socially distanced walks. I have a young woman in my office that we've been spending time taking walks every couple of weeks, and just doing a loop of 4 or 5 miles and chatting about what we're seeing in the industry and what we're seeing just happen overall in the world. It's really nice to connect in a different level that's not necessarily about real estate as well. And I've always found I'm really lucky that most of my clients have become really good friends. And so that networking just kind of evolves into a different level. And it's really nice to just pick up the phone and check in with people and not even talk about real estate, just check in, because there's that human nature of this business that we're missing right now over a computer. And it's just nice to pick up the phone rather than see somebody on video chat and just have an offline conversation and just say, hey, how are you doing? And just check in on the human level rather than on the real estate level, which is nice.
So I have some audience questions on this topic. Can you speak a little bit about a specific sponsor or a mentor that you've had along the way in your career and what it meant to you, and you know, what that experience was like and how that helped you succeed and get to where you are today?
I can share that it took a little while. You were saying, Carrie, there's a big difference between mentoring and sponsorship. And at first I didn't really understand that, right? So I was learning the business from my mentor, so that was terrific. But then I realized that there was a senior manager who was giving me the opportunities to be considered for a special deal team, or to go to an extra training class, or to be part of a corporate initiative some of those opportunities wouldn't have come at all to me if that person hadn't put my hat in the ring. So having someone who's thinking about your career path and helping to identify what that could be and ensuring that you get considered for those opportunities is unbelievably important. And so figuring out who that might be and then getting to know them and then asking, we talked a little earlier about, you need to ask and advocate for yourself and say, this is something I really want to do. How can I get there? Or can you help me figure out how to get there? I think that's so incredibly important.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that. I think my sponsorship, at Arrow Street when I joined, it was like 12 or 13 years ago, I was put on to, it was the Parcel K project, and I was a designer on that project. And then Superstorm Sandy hit New York, and I really dove into learning. I took a class at Harvard, run by some FEMA facilitator, and kind of, what does it mean to really make a building resilient? And it was through that learning that, raised the flag that, hey, Amy, can then address, these new requirements that really nobody knows, what the best practice is for making a building resilient. And so the principal who I was working with at the time kind of identified that, was bringing me to the meetings anyways, but I was able to present, what I had learned, how I thought we could, adjust the building design, make it more resilient. And then it took off from there. It led into an opportunity for an organization to co-chair, the Living with Water charrette, which then led to a higher profile locally. And so it's interesting kind of how one opportunity leads to 10 others if you're able to, branch out and not be afraid to say no. And so, just, keep offering up, talking to people, coming up with ideas. And, that resulted in, for me personally, that, it was a huge project anyway. So again, kind of giving women the opportunity to run complex projects that, they may not typically get that opportunity. I was able to move from designer to project architect to project director to eventually principal in charge for that job. And it was really all because of that one design opportunity. And it helped that Massport said that they linked my work. And so again, it's like that feedback loop from the client back to the people that you work for. That again helps career growth. So.
Thank you, Amy. Michelle or Carrie, do you want to weigh in?
Sure, and I would just say, I think a really important part of mentorship is being able to have hard conversations too. I mean, I remember a specific example when I was very early on in my career, and I had a senior manager tell me something I didn't want to hear. I mean, I have the gift of gab. I'm very fortunate that I found an industry where I basically get paid to connect dots and talk to people. But my father used to joke around that I could talk a dog off a meat truck. And I was very early in my career when I had a senior mentor say to me, look, God gave you two ears and one mouth to use them in proportion. And that just really taught me how to listen and how to really take the nuances of conversations and hear what's not necessarily being said, and to really think about what I was saying before I said it. And it was a hard conversation, and it was something that was probably the best lesson I could have learned in the last 20 years. And I think that that's really important, is finding someone you can have those very real conversations with you, that will be honest with you and sometimes tell you what you don't necessarily want to hear.
Thank you, everyone. Another audience question: what resources have you found most helpful at developing your soft skills to move your career forward in addition to your technical and industry skills? I'm going to call on Elizabeth, since she made reference to the Leadership Academy and some of the soft skills she learned there.
How did you know I was going to say that, Laura? So kudos to Laura for having the vision to put this together. It really was a transformative program, and I continue to stay in touch with my cohort. So that in and of itself, that support structure has been really valuable. But getting some facilitated training around those soft skills to ask some of the harder questions, to understand your leadership style, to understand your weaknesses. As Carrie was saying, sometimes someone has to pull you aside and say those things. And so we did that in this very private cohort. I think there were 13 of us working collaboratively over the course of about 10 months. And it helped hone in on the things that we're really terrific at, the things that we need a little improvement on, and how to leverage both the combination of our strengths and our areas for growth into the next step in our careers, and to look longer term as well. So I would absolutely say look for the program that's going to help you to do that, because the soft skills are just as important, as you said, Laura, as the technical skills. You know, we all have our training and our background and our education, but it's all those other ways and how you implement apply your education to what you do. I think that makes all the difference in how successful you are.
I would echo that. We've sent a number of our employees to the Crew Leadership Academy to develop both their network and kind of get additional training that's outside the office. And in addition, we put together a workforce grant, which we've brought in different people to train our staff in terms of, you know, just anything from presentation skills to, you know, talking about implicit bias. We just got finished with a book club too. I mean, you can't underestimate, you know, the power of reading a book with a number of your colleagues, and then just having those discussions on what can be somewhat sensitive topics. And so that ability to communicate is critical in our industry.
Michelle, did you want to weigh in here?
I was just going to weigh in and say that I think working for different managers, I've worked at 3 different banks for 3 different presidents, and they all have different takes in different ways of managing their bank and managing their staff. And I think I've walked away from things, I've walked away from jobs and said, oh, I can take this aspect of this person. I may not like what they do here, but I like what they do on this side of it. So I think from different people that you work for and with, you're taking a lot of their skills almost without even knowing it. Or being very specific and saying, he does that really, really well, I'm going to change my way. Or she does that really well. So I think working for different people and with different people, you just innately take away soft skills.
Carrie, do you have anything to add there?
I would just echo what all the other panelists have said. I think it's really important to just get exposed to as many different people, as many different styles as possible. And I think one thing that women tend to have in abundance is a high emotional quotient, or an EQ, and being able to mirror and kind of nuance how you react to things. And I think that's really important. I know that in my line of work, that's really exceptionally important, just understanding how to manage expectations and manage process. And I think that you just pick that up along the way, and it's just part of maturation of those soft skills that you're honing.
Thank you. So I'd like to end by asking each of you, what is one piece of advice that you would like to give for someone who is looking to have a successful career in your niche within the industry? Amy, let's start with you. You look like you're going to unmute.
So 2 things. One, embrace the uncertainty, because this profession, you're going to face a lot of uncertainty, a lot of ups and downs. Embrace it, you know, find the opportunities within that. And then the second part is, if you see an opportunity to make something better, you know, make that suggestion. Don't try to mute your voice. And if it doesn't get listened to the first time, you know, keep making the suggestion, but make it in different ways. Make it with different people, and keep trying, because eventually you will be heard.
Agreed. I would add that, again, learn how you fit into the deal team and how your skills and your expertise can help contribute to the success of the transaction. And again, I think a lot of that is communication, delivering good news fast, delivering bad news faster, and that allows the deal team to pivot, you know, make any adjustments they need to make that transaction work or not work, right? That's okay too, but you know, it's better to know that early before it becomes a problem too far down the road. So I think that's incredibly important. And just in general, I would say find the work that you love. Find work that you're passionate about, and that will manifest itself throughout everything you do. It'll make the harder days not so hard, and it'll make the rewarding, successful days incredibly gratifying.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Carrie?
I would just add to that, I think just being adaptable and being open throughout your career just opens new doors, new opportunities. I think right now is a time for transition for a lot of people. I mean, this is hard. I mean, we kept saying we're late in cycle, and who thought that a pandemic would be what would put us on pause for a little bit. I don't think anyone really saw that one coming, but I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming out of this. And I think being open to those opportunities and realizing that even if you're in transition or if things aren't going exactly the way that you planned, that's just an opportunity to learn a new skill and be better. And I would say that every time I've been asked to do something through my career that I didn't necessarily want to do or wasn't really excited about, it's opened up another world to me, just in terms of learning, meeting new people, and just continuing to put another quiver in my resume. So I just say being open and adaptable, particularly in times of transition. You just never know what the future will hold.
And Michelle?
Well, I think you guys have said it all, and probably more articulate than I'll say it, but it was the same exact thing that you all said. Be open to opportunities. The shoe, the first shoe may not fit the right way, and just try another one. There's so many different ways to be successful in real estate, and what works for one person may not work for the other person. So certainly keep your opportunities open and just continue moving forward.
Thank you, everyone. We have time for Q&A if anyone has any questions for this panel. I don't see anything in the chat box at the moment.
Well, I think we filled up most of the time anyways. I want to thank Laura Gregoriades.
Oh, you did it. Good job.
From DGC, and Carrie, I want to muy bueno. You did very well. And also Amy, do you ever not smile? You are the happiest person I've ever seen. I think it's great. And I think you all did fantastic. I think the people that are attending probably got quite a bit out of this. There was a lot of good information. I'm sure everyone is standing up and applauding right now, because I am. And I want to thank our sponsors for today, Northern Bank, which Michelle is a part of, and she's more than happy to answer any questions about 1031 exchanges. Crew Boston, which you can contact Laura or Amy. Amy is handling the membership, and you can get a nice smile from her, and she'll make your day. And I want to thank US Pavement. They are our annual sponsor, and they always support the journal. And I want to thank everyone for attending today. I think the panel did an excellent job, and I think we'll continue doing these annually. And anyone that is interested, please do join Crew Boston. I'm considering it myself. I want to wish everyone a happy and safe day, and until next year. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for watching today's interview. If you'd like to be a guest, a sponsor, or even advertise in the New England Real Estate Journal, you'll find our contact information in the description box below. You can also find all our social media platforms so you can follow us, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.